What's going on, everyone? It's the Print House, and today I'm installing a Creality CR Touch onto an Ender 6 running the stock Creality firmware, guys. Please like and subscribe, put some comments down below, and stick around for the video. So, because I am filming and installing as a one-man party right now, what I will be doing is showing you what to do, and then I'm going to pause the footage. I'm going to complete the step myself, and then I'll bring the camera back. I'm going to show you the completed step and what it should look like, and then we'll move on from there. Now, I am not going to be skipping absolutely any steps. This is a full, complete guide. The first thing that I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be installing the CR Touch onto the Creality Ender 6. I'm going to be giving you two different ways to install it, where to plug the wires in, and then after that, I'm going to go into building the correct wiring scheme. Now, guys, one thing I want to mention is this tutorial installation guide is strictly for the Creality stock firmware with BL Touch enabled. Okay, if you are running any custom firmware, this guide is not guaranteed to work. It might work with the wiring, but it's not guaranteed to work. So, guys, I hope it works for you, and let's get started. When you get your printer on its side, you'll notice the main board down here, and there is a place to install your CR Touch onto the main board down here. Now, the way you decide how you want to install your CR Touch is two ways. So the first way is the main board has this large connector. So the main CR Touch plugs in with the large connector, and this is going to be standard on most cables. If you want to plug into the daughter board, you're going to need a cable end with this mini connector. And obviously the CR Touch has the mini connector as well. So if you want to plug into the main board, you need the big cable and you need an extension cable. If you want to plug into the daughter board, you need the mini cable on both sides and the standard length, I think about 1 meter, 1.2 meter long cable is going to be sufficient. So we're going to be starting plugging the BL Touch into the daughter board up top. Now, to get a closer look at it, you can see where the BL Touch connector port is. Now that's on the far right of the board, and the way you plug it in is the white wire is going to be on the far right. You can only plug the cable in one way. It will not go in two ways, and if you follow my wiring instructions later in the video, you're going to be fine. Plug the white wire in on the far right, you're good to go. My cable is now firmly seated in the connector. You need to make sure that once you seat the connector, there's a noticeable tactile click. If there's not a click, your connector is not seated in the port. Now, please do not get concerned about the color of the wires. If your wires have a green cable or any other color, please don't get concerned. The color of the wire does not matter. If you follow the wiring diagram that I give you later on in the video, this is going to work regardless of what color you guys use for your wires. In case this is of importance to anyone, this board is the Spray Connector version 1.1, September 31st, 2020, FS2043. So this next step is purely optional. If you would like to route your cable along this black tube, go and do so by loosening these two screws, and then loosening this screw and this screw. I believe they're M3 sized, and that's going to loosen the openings and the both side of the tube, and you can route your cable through the tube and then out the other side. So for the next step, we're going to be loosening this screw. There's a screw right here, and then there's also a screw right here. Loosen those, and that's going to remove this cover around the fan shroud. Guys, be very careful. There are wires back here that you do not want to rip. The first time I removed this shroud, it was a little bit stuck. Just wiggle it around gently and it's going to come out. Now, you're going to see two posts. You're going to install your BL Touch there. Guys, this is very important. It's going to save you a lot of hassle. Look at the orientation of my fan shroud. I've got that U-shaped cutout on the back facing upwards. I have the front of the Creality CR Touch. You're going to install it like this. It's going to go in like this. So the Creality letters are going to be facing to the left when you have your fan shroud faced up. So go ahead, open your CR Touch box, and then remove this. Go to the bottom of the box. You're going to have a couple bags of screws. Now, if you have lost these screws, that is fine. You're going to use the M3x8. If you lost them, just purchase them at the hardware store. They're only a few pennies each. Those are the ones that I used. The threads are long enough. If you only have M3x6, go for it, use it, but you're going to have less threads. So there's a very real possibility that once it's installed, it's going to vibrate a little bit more. I would highly recommend using the M3x8. Plug the wire into your CR Touch first. If you don't do that, you're going to have a very difficult time plugging your wire in after it's already screwed into place. Guys, this is a very difficult step. Please don't get frustrated. A little tip I have for you is to put your CR Touch into place, put the first screw in, and then lift the fan shroud upside down. That's going to prevent it from falling, the screw from falling out. You can tighten the screw just a little bit. Don't tighten it down all the way, just a little bit. And then once the CR Touch no longer falls out of place, you can then go ahead and get that screw in there that you can't even see. Now that you have that first screw into place, you can rotate your CR Touch outward like this. You can put that screw in, and then you can rotate it back into place. You're going to have to fight with it to get it into the post, but it's the best way that I know how to do it. Okay, so once you've done that, go ahead and rotate your fan shroud back, put it back into place, and screw the screws in. Once you have these 3 screws firmly into place, you're essentially done. If you chose to route the cable through the black tube, then you are done. However, if you're like me and you have a big long wire hanging out, you're going to need to zip tie that cable to the black tube. But in order to make sure that your zip tie doesn't constrict the cable and then rip out of the CR Touch as it's printing, you need to move your print head to the far front left corner as much as you possibly can. Then extend the wire around the tube, zip tie it in multiple places, and then you're done. If you're opting to plug your CR Touch directly into the motherboard, there's going to be 2 screws on every side. Once you get all those screws undone, they look like this, and you can pop the back off directly. You're greeted with the main board, and the location in which you're plugging your CR Touch into is directly next to this rainbow cable. It is this connector right here. Now, there is a dab of hot glue on this. Please do not rip the cable out with your fingers. What I want you to do is to take your blue snips and gently snip the hot glue. That's going to loosen the cable and you can pull the connector out. If you leave this hot glue there and you try to just tug on the cables directly, you're going to break them. So once you have removed that old connector, take your CR Touch connector, plug it in. Now, most CR Touch wires are going to have the white on the bottom, then the black, then the yellow, then the red, then the blue. Again, guys, I've said it once already. The color of the wire is irrelevant, especially if you watch my wiring section later in this video. Just a reminder, if you're opting to plug your cable directly into the main board, you're going to need an extension. So the cable that comes with the CR Touch is about 1 meter long. You're going to need about 2 feet of extra length to be sure that you have enough. Now, you're going to have an option. You can either route the cable through this black sheathing, or you can just stick it through this hole and fish it out the other side. So for ease of the installation guide, I've chosen not to route the cable through the sheath. If you do the same as me, make sure that you route your cable behind these metal bars. This way the cable isn't loose. And when you get up here, put a zip tie right here at the base of the tubing, and then put a zip tie every 4 or 5 inches going along the tube. This way the cable is not free flying. From here on out, I already explained everything on the daughter board installation, guys. So go to this timestamp right here, and I'm going to have the rest of the installation for you. Okay, guys, so what you're seeing here is a digital representation of what I'm about to do in real time. Over here on the right side, you obviously have the CR Touch. Make note that the white wire is on the top of the CR Touch, and then you have the fat wire connector over here. And on this left side, this is the side that is connected into your daughter board. This was the first example of the installation that I showed you. Now, if you recall, I said when you plug this connector into the daughter board, the white wire is going to be closest to you. So if you're staring at the daughter board, the white wire is on the far right. Now, from here, it's as simple as plugging the white wire up to the blue wire, the black wire into the red wire, the yellow wire directly into the yellow wire, the red one into the black, and then lastly the blue into the white. Now, guys, if you are comfortable with soldering, you are perfectly allowed to cut the connectors off, strip the ends, and solder the wires together. I'm going to do this a little bit easier. You're going to see how I do it, and it's a perfectly acceptable way. So let's get into it. Depending on how you choose to plug your CR Touch into your printer, you've got multiple options. If you choose to plug your CR Touch into the daughter board, you have to have a small end on this side as well as on this side. If you choose to plug the CR Touch into the main board, you have to have a small end on this side and a big end on this side. The difference being, you must have an extended length cable to plug into the main board, whereas the daughter board, the standard size cable will work. So for the daughter board, the easiest solution that you can come by is to purchase a second cable on eBay. It costs about $6. Then you can purchase these breadboard jumper wires. These are male to male jumper wires. So the end is going to look like this. Both ends are going to have a male connector, and you can just literally plug them in to the cable as the wiring diagram shows. Now, if you end up purchasing a spare cable on eBay and it has the 3 and 2 pins like this, that will also be fine, guys. Just make sure you hook up the wires in the correct order. This is not going to be the most secure method, but this is the easiest method. So, the first thing to do is figure out which wires you have that equal the wiring diagram that I have shown you on the screen. So for me, the white wire, all these wires are the correct color. For you, they might be different colors. The blue wire might be green, but guys, don't worry about the color of your wire. What you need to do is plug your connector into the port and figure out which wire is on the far right. That wire is likely the white wire, but if it's not, then that is the wire that corresponds to white on my diagram. So I was editing this video and I just wanted to give you guys a tip to find the correct wire that corresponds to my white wire. So if you're looking at the connector and it looks like this, then the wire on top is the color of your wire that corresponds to the white wire on my diagram. In this case, obviously it is a white wire. Now if you're looking at the connector and it looks like this, so that is just the other side of the connector, then it's going to be the bottom wire, and once again, that obviously corresponds to white. Then come over to the back of your connector, figure out on this connector which ones line up with this connector, and then plug them up. But the method that I'm choosing to use does not require that second cable, and I'm doing that because I don't want all the excess length that having a full second cable gives you. That length is going to be very difficult to hide and conceal, so I'm going to be building my own cable. It's very easy. I'm going to tell you how to do it. So first, I bought this kit on Amazon. It comes with a bunch of pre-crimped wires up here, and it has a bunch of connectors. This is the connector that we need. I'm going to link this kit in the description below. I have no affiliation with them. They just make a very good product. So this, as you can see, is the exact same connector as the one that is on the CR Touch already. Now, if you look at both sides of the connector, you're going to see that it looks like this, we want to flip the connector over from this side so that it looks like, well, that. I'm getting a little bit blurry. Oh, sorry, it's not the right orientation still. So until it looks like that. Now, when we do that, we now know, looking at this cable that actually came with a CR Touch, that the white wire goes into the bottom, the black wire goes next to that, then the yellow, then the red, then the blue. I'm going to show you how to use this connector in a minute. So these wires have different ends on them. So you can see one end is kind of fat and stubby, and then one end has a long pointy end. We are going to be pushing the fat stubby end into this side of the connector. So you're going to be pushing it in the connector this direction. So obviously this white wire is going to be pushed into this closest position, the black one next to that, the yellow one next to that, the red one next to that, and then the blue one next to that. Now, you know the wire is seated and in place correctly if you tug on the wire and it does not come out. If you tug on the wire and it comes out, it's not seated correctly. Guys, you can't mess this up. It's very easy. If you push it in and it doesn't get stuck, turn the wire upside down, push it in again. It's very easy to do. Alright, that took me no more than 10 seconds, and I now have an identical cable to the one that was shipped with the CR Touch. You can see that the connector is identical with the colors, and then this side has the pointy ends. So the next step is going to be to take the cable that you just made, and you're going to take the cable that came with your CR Touch. You're going to cut open the connector. If you know how to disassemble these connectors, you can do so. It's not worth it. I am just cutting it with the Creality flush cut snips. Guys, these can be disassembled. It's just not worth the time. So I'm cutting it open and I'm removing the cables just like so. Also, make sure you put on some shrink tubing onto your cable. Alright guys, so the next step after you have your wires out of your connector is to hook them up as per the diagram. You can see I have the CR Touch over here and I have the wires connected up. I have my piece that goes into the daughter board, and so an optional step for you guys to do is to solder these joints together. I highly recommend it. If you don't do that, there's a good chance you're going to have an unstable connection. Guys, one thing that you must do is you must cover this with shrink tubing or electrical tape. You don't have to do both, but you must do one. The last configuration I'm telling you guys how to wire up is going to be to plug your CR Touch into the bottom main board on the Ender 6. It's going to require you to have the main cable that came with your CR Touch. You must also have a brand new cable, and it's going to require you to have this connector box. So instead of using the male connector that we used last time, you're going to be using a female connector, and I'm going to have you plug that female connector into the small end of the new cable that you purchased. And instead of using this end of the cable and shoving that into the connector, you're going to take the pointy end of the wire and you're going to plug the pointy end of the wire into the back of the female connector. Now, if you're using this method, completely ignore the wiring diagram that I left for you guys, because if you're using this method, you want to wire up the white wire to the white wire, the black wire to the black wire, the yellow wire to the yellow wire, so on and so forth. So if you're doing this method, completely ignore the wiring diagram. This is what your cable should look like. You should have the white wire going to the white wire, the black to the black, so on and so forth. And then you're going to plug this wire to this white wire, this black wire to this black wire, yellow to yellow, red to red, blue to blue. Guys, every wire is going to be different. You are going to have to solder this probably, because this connector does not plug into this connector. So you're likely going to have to cut the end of one of these and then solder it to the other one. So if you're performing this task, you're almost definitely going to have to solder the wires. If this video was at all helpful for you guys, please give me a like and a subscribe. Put some comments down below. This video has taken me many hours to pull together, and there has not been a good video on installing the CR Touch onto the Ender 6, so I thought we needed to have a full, in-depth, detailed install guide. Guys, this was difficult to pull off. Please give me a like and a subscribe. Put some comments down below. I'll see you on the next one.